Does this guy look familiar to you? Dominic Bernard Patrick Luke Monaghan, born 8 December 1976. He achieved worldwide fame as he played Meriadoc, Merry, Brandybuck in Peter Jackson's epic film trilogy, The Lord of the Rings, 2001 to 2003, based on the novel of the same name by J.R.R. Tolkien. Little movie, Lord of the Rings, that tiny trilogy that had cartoons and books and millions of dollars and millions of fans. January 3rd, 2020. Star Wars star Dominic Monaghan hopes for Rise of Skywalker director cut. In a wide-ranging interview, the actor does not address conspiracy theories that prompted the hashtag release the JJ cut, but he does note that filmmaker J.J. Abrams shot a lot of material not in the final version. Oh man, there was so much stuff. Like a lot of Star Wars fans, I'm hoping there will be a director's cut so we'll get to see more and more of the stuff that was filmed, Monaghan tells The Hollywood Reporter. I wasn't there all the time, but even in the short time that I was there was so much stuff filmed that didn't make it to the theatrical version. Oh man, there was so much stuff. Monaghan also alludes to a cut scene involving his character, Beaumont Kin, Kelly Marie Tran's Rose, and Billy Lord's Lieutenant Connix, which aligns with Tran's own account of unused final battle footage. Another thing that we will hopefully see at some point in the future is that in the final battle, Connix injures her leg, Monaghan reveals. Obviously, myself, Rose, and Connix are exiting the battle, and Rose has a weapon. While Rose is busy doing stuff, I grabbed Connix's arm and put it over my shoulder to make sure that all of us come back as unscathed as possible. Do you know who Lieutenant Connix is? Cadale Connix, a lieutenant at the Dakar Resistance Base. Cadale Connix coordinated communications during the Starkiller base raid. She then helped organize the evacuation of Dakar and served aboard the Radis. Connix shared Poe Dameron's misgivings about Vice Admiral Holdo conspiring with the starfighter Ace against their new commander and joining his brief-lived mutiny. She survived the Battle of Crate, escaping with the remnants of the Resistance. Does she look familiar to you? Billy Lord. Billy Lord, born July 17, 1992, is an American actress. She is known for starring as Channel 3 in the Fox horror comedy series Scream Queens, and for her roles in the FX horror anthology series American Horror Story, 2017 to present. She also appears as Lieutenant Connix in the Star Wars sequel trilogy, 2015 to 2019. Lord is the only child of actress Carrie Fisher. Does that name ring a bell? Perhaps an actress that's made a movie or two? Perhaps the most famous and important and beloved princess of all time? Leia Organa. Princess Leia Organa was one of the Rebel Alliance's greatest leaders, fearless on the battlefield and dedicated to ending the tyranny of the Empire. Daughter of Padme Amidala and Anakin Skywalker, sister of Luke Skywalker, and with a soft spot for scoundrels, wife of Han Solo. Leia ranks among the galaxy's greatest heroes, but life under the New Republic has not been easy for Leia. Sidelined by a new generation of political leaders, she struck out on her own to oppose the First Order as founder of the Resistance. These setbacks in her political career have been accompanied by more personal losses. Dominic, who had starred in Lord of the Rings and is now in Star Wars and has a very small part, not only has zero character development, but probably the most important scene that he filmed outside of something around Leia, which we don't know if there's something personal with Leia, but there are scenes in the film where he's right around Leia. But arguably the most important scene of him saving Connix, who in the movie is not Leia's daughter, but still we all know that's Carrie Fisher's daughter. Is Connix the most important character in Star Wars? No, by no means. But it's the last Star Wars film. Carrie Fisher's gone. And this is a key scene in the movie that would have given a lot of context to not only what's going on, it would have given more screen time, it would have shown Connix in battle and that she had gotten injured for the Resistance, and it also would have given Dominic's character a little more weight because he, in a sense, saves or assists Connix to escape with Rose from the battle on top of the Star Destroyer. Does this scene change the film? No, not necessarily, but it would have given a lot more character development and your investment in caring about Beaumont Kin, Dominic's character, and also strengthened Rose Tico and Billy Lord. It's a nice scene that should have been left in the film, and it was cut for no apparent reason. Without bearing the lead, what was it like to hug an armless alien mechanic named Claude? Just look at that, an armless alien mechanic. That's how dysfunctional the Rise of Skywalker is. You've got mechanics that don't have arms, or even feet for that matter. Yeah, that was fun. Obviously, growing up with the originals, they're filled with so much kind of wonder. These interesting beasts aliens enjoy sparked so much imagination. Claude was a great hit on set because he looked very funny. He always continued to create that lighthearted vibe that seems to be very important to JJ. A guy that was in Lord of the Rings, comics that is supposed to be somewhat significant in the last Star Wars movie, saves Connix, and they task him with hugging the French tickler. You take that as you like. To me, that's Disney shitting on The Lord of the Rings. We're better than you, and we're going to take one of your most recognizable characters, and we're going to have him hug a giant dildo. Are those creatures pretty fragile? They're a little delicate. Obviously, we did it a few times, and JJ was saying to me, just be careful how you hug Claude, because if you hug him too tight, you're going to see his body collapse under the pressure. You guys take that as you like. Like a lot of Star Wars fans, I'm hoping there will be a director's cut, so we'll get to see more and more of the stuff that was filmed. I wasn't there all the time, but even in the short time that I was there was so much stuff filmed that didn't make it to the theatrical version. Did you ask JJ where the inspiration for the name Beaumont Kin came from? No, I don't think I asked him about the name. I'm sure every actor on the film would probably tell you that some parts of the work they did didn't make it into the cut. One of the things about my character that was a little bit more established in terms of everything that we filmed was that he was a code breaker, Beaumont. So a lot of the information that had come to our heroes had come through Beaumont. So we did talk a little bit about his ability to break code and what that means when someone has a brain like that. I'm not a massive Dominic fan, but I know him from The Lord of the Rings. He did a good job. To this day, from years ago, remember his face and his character. I don't follow him, so I don't know much of what else he's done. I'm not a fan per se, but I like the guy. Never had anything against him. I think he's a good actor, and he sticks out from Lord of the Rings. I know that face. I know him. Furthermore, I've always known his face more so than his name. So I have absolutely nothing against him. But in this movie, he's just some twerp, just some guy that's there. You have no context, no story. You have no idea who he is, where he's from, what he does. So if JJ would have left all of one more minute, a few seconds, and explained that he's a code breaker, and Leia or Rose or anybody could have said, the Resistance is so lucky to have you. You've been able to decipher all this information. I mean, literally 10 seconds of dialogue could have changed the entire dynamic of this character and gave him some weight. They wasted 3 seconds, 5 seconds of him hugging a French tickler instead of establishing that, hey, you're somebody important in the Resistance. And because of you, we have all this information now. Not just implying it or having a dumb line like, what about the Holo maneuver? They have him suggesting the dumbest thing that ever happened in Star Wars. Well, outside of Leia floating in space. But they don't establish that he's the code breaker for the Resistance. So you can see that just taking out one line, one small scene of a movie can totally alter the course of that character, of the story. I'm not saying that his establishment as a codebreaker would have changed the entire movie or had so much significance, but at least you would have some connection to this character, someone that I think most of you probably have respect for and love for from Lord of the Rings. I've never heard anything negative about this guy being in jail or arrested or having problems. He has a good image in Hollywood. And now you've got him hugging a giant dildo, as opposed to establishing the fact that he was important in the Resistance. These are the things that the Rise of Skywalker, and I don't know if it's directly JJ's fault, or Kathleen Kennedy, or Iger, or it's probably a combination of all of them, Lucasfilm, but they are either on purpose shitting on these people, or they just literally are clueless of what storytelling is. Because these are the little things that establish a character. Beaumont appeared in Star Wars Adventures 27, a comic book that was released in October. Apparently he went on a mission with Chewie to defend the Wookiee planet of Kashyyyk. While unlikely, was any of the backstory available to you before you filmed over a year ago? No, that stuff wasn't. Although I did find out that as well, and I bought 2 copies of these comics. I think it's part of a trilogy. They released 2, and then I think the final one of that story came out on December 20. So that's going to be available to me when I get home, and it's obviously something I'm going to read with great interest. The more backstory that you get with Beaumont, there's potentially a chance that maybe we could continue to explore that story, especially since he seems to have a relationship with Chewie, who's one of the more beloved characters in the entire Star Wars canon. So it's exciting to me because I'm a Star Wars fan first and foremost. Reading backstory on any character, even one that doesn't have anything to do with me, is really interesting. And again, Disney failing, because I've seen the film. I don't understand that there's any connection between Beaumont and Chewie. Yet he's on a mission to defend Kashyyyk with the Wookiee. How important? Again, if seconds on the screen, they could establish that him and Chewie have some sort of past, some sort of relationship. So now you've gone from someone that's hugging a French tickler to a code breaker who has some sort of significance with Chewie in the past. Now he's somebody of importance. He matters in the Resistance. He's there for a reason. You've given his character some weight. With what? An extra 30 seconds, 1 minute of more runtime in the film. When Chewie was upset over Leia, Beaumont approached him and said, "Come on, buddy, we need you." So the film does allude to their relationship. It's clear that they know each other. Not necessarily. That's just saying you're in the Resistance and you say, "Come on, buddy, we need you." You wouldn't have shorthand with a massive Wookiee like that unless you knew you were safe. You'd probably avoid him as much as you could because Chewie, even though he's a puppy dog at the end of the day, looks terrifying. So I think that shorthand is a really cool thing to establish. I got along really well with Jonas, the guy who plays Chewie. One day we were shooting, I asked, "Hey Jonas, I'm sure you get asked this a lot, but when we cut, can you keep Chewie's head on for like 20 seconds and I'll just come over and give you a hug?" It was important to me to have that Chewie moment, and he was like, "Of course, no problem, that's cool." So I went over and did it, and he completely committed by giving a few Wookiee noises. If I was making Star Wars, not only would I be careful to respect and include all the important details, but I would also talk to my cast and understand their personal connections to the saga. Now, Star Wars is a big project. I can't know the story of 1,000 people. When you think about it, the main characters, what are we talking about? 12 people? The people that you see, well, not all of them are in the 3 films. So you take project by project, and in Rise of Skywalker, who are the characters that really have screen time and have some sort of significance? Well, off the top of my head, Jaina, Zori, Poe, Finn, Rey, Leia, Rose Tico, Beaumont, Chewie, R2, BB, Billy Lord, Connix. So what is that, about 10 people? There's probably 15, 20 characters tops that we connect with, that we see a lot. Even Snap Wexley, I was making fun of him in my other video. If they would have given him 30 more seconds of screen time and explained like, "Man, it's a great thing that we picked you up back in the battle of such and such. You really saved us that time." You know, Poe could have had a short 10-second conversation with Snap, establishing his character and being like, "Oh, that's why Snap is there. Because, you know, he saved Poe one time in this space battle." These little things. But back to my point is, I would have, for example, spoken to Dominic and known that it was important to him that he has that Chewie moment. Now, what would it have cost JJ to recognize that and film that? And instead of having him hugging a French tickler, further establishing the fact that Chewie and Beaumont have a relationship. So at the end of the film, instead of Chewie picking up Rose and hugging her, who I don't think they even speak once in the entire trilogy, why is he picking up Rose and hugging her? Because it's cute, she's so tiny, and the big Wookiee picks her up. It's just dumb. There's no connection. But you could have further established Beaumont's character with just seconds of film explaining A, that he is a code breaker, B, that he has some sort of relationship with Chewie, and then finishing it out in the celebration where, of all people, he goes to Chewie. Everybody loves Chewie. Everybody probably hugged Chewie in the celebration, but it would have given a lot of context if they had a specific moment instead of Finn and Beaumont looking at each other like, "Hey, it's you." It would have been much more powerful, more impactful if they would have shown Beaumont give a high five or a hug or an expression, something to Chewie. That would have further established that they know each other and there's some connection there and there's importance. And it would have given them both a little more screen time. So this film just shows you how unthoughtful it is, how disconnected it is. You don't know your own characters, you don't know your own actors, you don't know their connection to Star Wars, and you're putting in scenes that are just stupid. Beaumont hugging Claude for what? When you could have further driven home Beaumont and Chewie. Not to mention, that would have been a respectful thing to Dominic, as opposed to shitting on him with the dildo. You could have said, "Hey, this moment is important to you in Star Wars. I'm going to give you that on screen." Was there a particular moment on set where you felt the magic that only Star Wars can create? I had a really fun and tender moment with R2-D2 when no one else was around. We were shooting the crowd scene and we got the shot. So when we moved it to the opposite side of the set, so the entire crew and cast moved over to start the process of blocking, and they left R2 in the space that we had done the previous scene because he wasn't going to feature in the next moment. So it was just me and R2, and no one else was around. I went over and put my hand on R2's dome and just silently whispered a few sentences in my brain as a way of paying tribute to how much of an influential, positive element he was in my childhood. That was a moment of emotion that was private and intimate and something that was for me. As I walked over to the set to shoot the other scene, I had a moment of feeling quite overwhelmed and grateful. It was beautiful and bizarre at the same time. Again, JJ not recognizing the project that he's even working on. Why wouldn't you capture that? You're finishing the most important film of history. Why don't you have cameras rolling 24/7, capturing all these little moments? And why wouldn't you use that? Again, further strengthening the character of Beaumont. So when you take into account his scene of helping Connix, his scene of hugging Chewie, his scene of establishing he's a codebreaker and all of 3 seconds of him putting his hand on Archie's dome. What are we talking about? A minute of screen time? This movie was originally supposed to be the longest of the trilogy, which it should have been. All of us would have been perfectly fine with 3 hours of the conclusion of Star Wars. We would have loved it. This movie would have had much better pacing, and they could have developed a lot of characters. At the end of the day, I really don't give a damn about Beaumont Kin, Rose Tico, Snap Wexley, Zori Bliss, or Jaina. They're all pretty just whatever. And that's not a hateful thing. That's not anything against the actors. I'm talking about these characters. They're really honestly pretty worthless. But if you're going to have them and they're supposed to have context, then give them some sort of story. Another problem is towards the end, Lando says to Jaina, do you have a family? She's like, no, I was taken as a child. And he looks at her like real creepy, like, well, let's find out. Me, as someone that knows Star Wars since 1977, I saw that moment and I'm like, is slick ass Lando picking up on this young chick? That's literally what it looks like. Now, if you're crazy like I am, then you know that there's a side story of Lando's daughter was taken and that turns up being Jaina. But if you don't know that, even someone that knows Star Wars just seeing the film has no context. So it looks like Lando's hitting on this girl. And if you're a casual watcher, you're definitely going to be like, well, what was that all about? This movie fails on so many levels. That had so many opportunities to elaborate on small details that would have made a huge impact. And yet Disney wants to make everything like, well, you'll have to read the comic. You'll have to watch the cartoon. That's not how Star Wars works. The original real Star Wars, first of all, answered questions. Yes, there were cliffhangers, but they were addressed. You weren't left totally confused. What it left was openings where you wanted to know more because the story was so good. And that's where the EU expanded universe came from, was that people loved these movies so much that they started making side stories, expanded stories, building on the main story of the movies. But it wasn't because the movies had holes and you were confused. It was because you wanted more. Whereas the sequel trilogy, and especially Rise of Skywalker, just leaves you totally with your arms up in the air because you don't know what the hell is going on. You don't understand anything because they don't give you any context to any of these characters or situations. So you got Billy D. Williams looking like he's a pedophile. You got Beaumont looking like a chump. You got Rose like just some little potato sack nobody. R2's non-existent. I mean, it's just, after the trailer premiered, some people thought that Beaumont and Billy's character, Connix, were in a relationship since they didn't have context for why he was holding her. But after seeing the movie, it looks like she was wounded in a wide shot and he was just helping her back to the lander. Is that correct? Yeah, that's right. Another thing that we will hopefully see at some point in the future is that final battle. Connix injures her leg. Obviously myself, Rose, and Connix are exiting the battle, and Rose has a weapon. While Rose is busy doing stuff, I grab Connix's arm and put it over my shoulder to make sure that all of us come back as unscathed as possible. Now you see, 30 seconds of film, even 10 seconds, and they could have shown that and given weight to Rose, given weight to Connix, and given weight to Beaumont. Rose because she's in the thick of the battle, Connix because one of the top heroes and Leia's daughter is injured, so it gives you a little bit of a dramatic twinge. And then Beaumont, who's a nobody, is stepping up. He's in the middle of the battle and he's helping these two girls, not rescuing the poor desperate women, but helping his comrades, his fellow resistance members, to get out of a bad situation. Now you care about Beaumont. Now you say, oh wow, he's a good guy. He helped to the ladies in Star Wars. He's more important, on top of a relationship with Chewie, and then he had a battle with Chewie going to Kashyyyk, and on top of him being the code breaker that's giving them all this information to even get them to the point of where they can be battling on the Star Destroyers. What else were you fond of that didn't make the final cut? Oh man, there was so much stuff. I think this is probably more of a question for JJ because Star Wars is such a geek fest, obsessive thing that you don't want to start revealing Easter eggs too soon. But I remember texting JJ at the end of certain days and saying, oh my god, I can't wait to see that. It was just extraordinary to even just be involved in that scene. And unfortunately, with the time constraints, they didn't make it where they changed things around. So I'm hoping that if and when the DVD comes out, that maybe they'll add extras or they'll have deleted additional scenes. So here he mentions time constraints. The film is 2 hours and 22 minutes. Make the movie 3 hours. Spread it out. Give it time to breathe. And with an extra 40 minutes, you can can spend 2 minutes to Rose, 2 minutes to Beaumont, 2 minutes interconnecting Beaumont with Chewie and Chewie with Rose and Beaumont with Connix, and you could develop all these relationships. Notice that when Leia's death happens and she's fading, that Beaumont is one of the few people right up front with Maz and Billy, and they're watching her fade away. That's insinuating that Beaumont was someone closer, someone of importance. But this is what this movie does. It insinuates things. You have no context as to why he's up front there. Why is he so important? For all we know, for the past 10 years, he had been working closely with Leia and giving her all kinds of intel. But we don't know that. When you shot the final battles, a ground assault with Billy and Kelly, did the chaos feel completely organized? Yeah, everything feels organized on JJ's set because you're working on the biggest and best set in the world at that point. I was saying to friends who work in the business that it's really intriguing because with JJ being one of the best, if not the best, directors in the world, it means that his camera guy is the best camera guy in the world, his first assistant is the best first assistant in the world, the costume designers are the best in the world, the makeup artists are the best in the world. You're dealing with the best of the best. So none of it feels rushed, messy, or hectic. It all just feels extremely calm and professional. Now that's an interesting insight because if you've watched this film, it feels totally rushed, messy, and hectic. I don't care if you like this film or not, tell the truth. This movie is rushed, messy, and very hectic. So it's interesting because he's praising JJ for his organization and his thoughtfulness, and I've heard this in many other accounts that JJ is very respectful. It makes you really wonder, was Disney the ones that destroyed this film? I personally am not a fan of JJ. I think he's a hack, and I really don't care about the JJ cut. I will only accept a brand new redone George Lucas trilogy. Otherwise, I don't really give a damn about Disney Star Wars. But just to be fair to JJ, it does appear that there was definitely some other cut of this film. How extensive, how much, I don't know. There are obviously scenes that are missing, and we know this not only from direct information from Kelly Marie Tran and now Dominic, but also many over the months references. John Boyega has made so many hints at how he wanted Finn to do more and that he had been frustrated because he's always like this nobody and he wants him to finally do something. John obviously knew that he's force sensitive and that he could have had all this story and all these things going on behind the scenes, and yet they reduced him to Rey! Rey! That's all this kid does is Rey! What a shame. What a lost opportunity. He won awards in The Force Awakens for Best New Actor, and yet they just reduced him to nothing. So it's very clear that there's a lot missing from this film. At the end of the day, I don't believe that quote-unquote JJ's cut is so different or so much better. This movie is a mess, and it would have been a mess regardless. But maybe, just maybe, there are some good extra scenes that would have given some context, that would have maybe lessened the blow a little bit to the fans and to JJ, because JJ is under a lot of heat right now. And while I feel he deserves it, he took the money, he chose to do this not once but twice. He came back into this mess. So I don't have sympathy for JJ particularly, but it is very frustrating if you create something and then someone just comes behind you and discombobulates it and just does whatever they want to do. At the end of the day, I don't care about a JJ's cut, but it will be interesting if there's deleted scenes released to see how much more of a mess that Disney made out of this. In fact, on that day, there was quite a big reset in that sequence because you had to reset squibs on the floor so they could explode. You needed dust, you needed fake rocks or fake pieces of the set to blow up around you, and you had to reset the camera, which is on a crane. At one point, there was an even longer reset, and JJ carries around microphones sometimes to talk to massive sets so that everyone can hear him at the same time. He said, hey guys, it's going to be 15-20 minutes. And when you're on a film set, that usually means 35-40 minutes. So we playfully ground when he said it was going to be a while. And again, to lighten the mood and have fun, he played Intergalactic by the Beastie Boys really, really loud in the studio. All the rebels and all the stormtroopers were all dancing with each other. I don't know if they captured that on film, but all of us were doing robot dances with stormtroopers, Sith troopers, and stormtroopers with jetpacks. Again, that was another one of those moments that I thought, remember this, because this will be something that you tell your grandchildren when you're older. One of the things that annoys me about Disney is they have these like party nights at Disneyland and Disney World, and they've got literally Darth Vader and stormtroopers dancing. It's just the most stupid, disrespectful. I know that to like little kids, it's probably so funny and hilarious and cute that they see Darth Vader and stormtroopers dancing. But as an adult, it just looks ridiculous. And as someone that has been a fan of this saga for 42 years, you're just totally disrespecting Darth Vader, having him like doing the Cabbage Patch on a Disney stage in Disney. It's just absurd. It really pisses me off when I see that nonsense. He's supposed to be feared. He's supposed to be a respected and loved character, and you've got him boogieing on a stage. It's nonsense. However, this scene, or one of many times apparently, where JJ would put on Intergalactic and the whole cast is dancing around and having fun, that's a real moment. And those are the actual cast of the film. So whether it be in the deleted scenes or what I would have done is in the closing credits, I would have shown like a little spoof cut in of the cast happy to be working on Star Wars and having fun. Nothing to do with the film. In the credits, have them a little cutscene where they're celebrating. And they could have even literally done like, hey guys, it's going to be 15 minutes. And then JJ puts on the music and the whole cast is just mingling and dancing, and a natural, organic moment of the cast on the last Star Wars film. That would have been cute and funny to see Sith troopers dancing around. Something real. Again, a totally lost opportunity. So when people say that JJ is such a brilliant director, when he misses things that are so obvious like this, it really makes me question, does he even understand the details of life, of filmmaking, and more importantly, of Star Wars? Aside from the major beats in the celebration sequence, would JJ roll camera for a while and just let you guys instinctively celebrate? Again, that's all JJ. He doesn't miss anything. Well, apparently he misses quite a bit. So he would be directing certain sections of the crowd, and when it was you in a certain section, he would come over and try to keep it as natural as possible. JJ is very specific with direction, but in that particular moment, he'll give you a little bit of, you hug this person, you pat this person on the back. He'll say stuff in those moments because he wants to roll it and see what happens. You might actually bump into someone because everyone is jumping around and celebrating, or you'll get surprised by seeing someone who you didn't expect, or someone arrives in the scene earlier or later than expected. JJ loves all of that because it feels so natural. When I see John Boyega at the end, John had walked through a semi-corridor of people a few times, and once they'd done that 2 or 3 times, on the next one, JJ said to me, you get in that corridor, because I think he wanted John to be surprised by me being there instead of seeing the same people. So it just allowed John and I to have that moment of, hey, it's you. And he was like, oh, it's you too. And that made it in the movie. In a galaxy far, far away with all these big, massive moments, JJ is always looking for those intimate moments to keep things grounded. That is fine. That they show a different perspective and they see each other and they acknowledge each other. Cool. That gives Beaumont at least some weight because one of the main characters, Finn, is acknowledging him. Fine. But that was all of what? 3 seconds of film? So why didn't you also add the Chewie part and maybe something with Rey or Rose, who apparently you worked hand in hand with Rose, which is also strange. There's no development whatsoever of him and Rose. Furthermore, let's take it a step farther. Being as they're both computer nerds and they're working around each other all the time, and it's a time of war and your options are pretty low, and they both seem like pretty nice, intelligent people, and they care about the resistance and care about everyone surviving and winning, you could have made a whole little side thing of Rose and Beaumont. Now, I don't want a Beaumont and Rose love story, but you could have, within seconds of film, developed, even if it's just a look that they gave each other, or a kiss at the end, whatever. Instead of Rose raping Finn, they could have had a little moment at the end of happiness and joy and respect for each other, that they work around each other so much. They've been through so much through all the movies and the resistance movement, and they witness Leia die, and they go through the experience on the Star Destroyer, and he gets them out of there, and then they're back and they're celebrating, and it would have made a lot of sense to have a natural kiss or embrace by Rose and Beaumont instead of forcing a lesbian kiss or forcing him hugging a French tickler. These are simple little things. I don't even direct movies, and I promise you I could have made this movie 1,000 times better than J.J. Abrams. During the Resistance pep talks at the base, did you actually get a rousing feeling from shooting those scenes? Yeah, you definitely do. You hope, or at least I hope, to have that be a driving motivation for yourself. In that sequence at the end where Oscar and John are laying out the plans as to how they're going to deal with stuff, just watching Oscar and John talk through the plan and then have Greg Grunberg react, me react, and 3PO, R2, and Chewie are there. They had a lot of cutaways in that scene than actually featured in the theatrical version at that moment. But yeah, it's amazing to watch Billy D. Williams in a scene. I was also watching John and Oscar do their thing. It's one of those no acting required moments because all you do is listen and it gets you excited. So it really worked. It's great writing by JJ and Chris Terrio. So again, how many examples have I given you? There's all these cut scenes that they had with 3PO, R2, Poe, Finn, Snap, Worthless Wexley, Beaumont, Rose was probably there. So you could have given all these people a little more screen time. 1 minute more. What would that that have done to the film? It would have added tons of context and added what? All of everything I've discussed so far would have added tops 5 minutes more of runtime to the film. I'm not talking about making a big elaborate thing, just details that would have connected dots and most importantly, connected us, the audience, to the characters. And once you have a connection with the characters, you can then establish a story. And that's what this film and all of the trilogy fails at, is establishing characters, thus you cannot connect with the characters, and thus you cannot establish a story. I love how Beaumont wanted more Holdo maneuvers. So you see, instead of establishing the things that matter, you just further shit on this guy by bringing up the dumbest thing in Star Wars, and he's the one that suggests it. Yeah, that was something that happened quite late in the shoot. So you see, they just threw it in there. Once JJ was putting together the film, I think he probably thought, well, there's an option there that has not been talked about, and surely everyone would know about that option because it happened relatively recent. Although what happened was tragic, no, it wasn't. We were all glad to see Holdo go. It was effective in a way. So I think he thought that we need to at least put that on the table. Otherwise, this rabid fan base would say, why not that as an option before it gets shut down by Finn? Anytime JJ threw me a line in a Star Wars film, I was like, oh my God, you just blessed me. You just helped me do another run on the convention circuit. So I was happy to say it. Laughs. Holdo, not only again did you not develop as a character that we have any care about her, but she was a total bitch. She was totally out of place, disrespectful, and pointless. She ate up film time for no reason. You made this whole point of putting Poe in his place so that she could just turn around and vaporize herself. Totally pointless character. And I know that there's gotta be like 5 Holdo fans on this earth, but nobody gives a damn about Holdo. So no, it was not tragic. You wasted time when you could have had Poe doing more things. Imagine in The Last Jedi if they would have cut out the casino and the whole Holdo taking control. There's what, 20 minutes of the film that they could have done something of value. And as you can see, JJ is improvising a lot of things. All directors and even many actors improvise. That's okay. Some of the greatest moments in film history were improvisation. It's not to say that you can't ever go off script, you can't add something, twist something, but time and again, I hear how something just happened, how JJ just winged it, how something was just added. And it goes to the big picture problem here. There was no plan. They had no outline of the 3 movies, never mind individually the movies, but the 3 movies together as a trilogy. And you've got so many times where you're hearing, well, this was improvised, this was thrown in, this was changed, this was deleted. So even the small little bit of a plan that they had was really just all up in the air anyways. And that's why we have the result that we have, is that this is just a disorganized mess that was totally just winged. The article will be linked in the description if any of you want to read it. There's obviously quite a bit cut out of this film. All films end up with deleted scenes, but it's becoming apparent that A, there's a lot of deleted scenes, and B, they really were important. When you're talking about the trade-off of time and budget to establishing the story, well, I could have done everything that Kelly Marie Tran and Dominic have just mentioned in all of a 5-10 minute span. They're already way over budget. They're already recutting and doing things. They're already finishing the film less than a month from its release. So why wouldn't you just leave an extra 5 or 10 minutes? And furthermore, why wouldn't you just use 40 more minutes? Make a solid 3-hour film. Finish out with a bang and establish these characters, give insight to situations. When Rey and the gang meet Lando on Pasana, he doesn't even mention that, yeah, the main reason why I'm here and why I'm not going to come and help you and reunite with Leia and give her a huge hug and tell her how much I love her and miss her and how important she is and reunite is because I lost my daughter and I'm here out of grieving and out of still searching. How much more impact would that have given to Lando's character? How much more depth that he, the playboy, had sacrificed Cloud City and everything because he stayed on this planet searching not just for a worthless dagger with Luke, who just, I guess, gave up, but because his daughter was there. And they could have established that with 30 seconds or less of dialogue instead of the Knights of Ren standing on a rock looking like an 80s punk band. They could have established one of the most important characters, Lando, and given context so that at the end, instead of looking like some creepy pedophile, it could have been like, oh, that's Lando's daughter. And what a heartwarming moment that could have been at the end of the film. I guess Disney and JJ just don't get it. They don't know how to connect dots. They don't understand the importance of storytelling. And most importantly, they just don't understand Star Wars. I'll leave you with that. I wanted to give you guys an update on some more Disney nonsense. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the video. May the Force be with you.